Hello, world. Welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. Hello, world, and welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. We're broadcasting live from the Joy Virtual Studio right here in the beautiful Finger Lakes region of New York State. It is so great to be with all of you today. It is Wednesday, the epicenter of yet another busy broadcast week. It is November 19th, and they did it. Tom Massey, Marjorie Taylor Greene, joining with Democrats like Ro Khanna on a mission now that has spanned about 4 to 6 months to make sure that the Epstein files are released. And last night, as you know, overwhelmingly in the House, I believe there was only one no vote for releasing the Epstein files. The Senate voted late last night and overwhelmingly, unanimously voting to release the Epstein files. And Mr. President Donald Trump doesn't seem too happy about it. This is the top story of the day. We're going to devote a little bit of time to this on the Shannon Joy Show, but we're also going to talk about the onslaught of the technocracy and the rise of the techno-fascists. Lots happening within Washington, D.C., as Trump continues to surround himself with techno-fascists like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and David Sachs, who pushed out a photo yesterday of them all gathering at the White House for a candlelit dinner. This is a big problem, and we are watching the takeover of our government by techno-fascists. It's a big deal, and there are a lot of different angles and elements to this story. There are the databases, there is the AI, there is the takeover of our government bureaucracies, the Treasury and Social Security by Doge. Remember when Elon Musk went in, sucked up all of Americans' private data, and they began the move to mechanize and make automatic many government decisions. That's all in play right now. We have Project Stargate. We have the creation of the massive Manhattan-sized databases, and also the creation of the grid, the control grid. And there's very important reporting happening right now on Substack by a woman named Renette Senham. She is an independent researcher on Substack. She has about 24,000 followers, loosely connected with Children's Health Defense, which is an amazing organization. And she is ringing the alarm bell on the creation of that digital grid. What is it? We hear about digital ID. We hear about the digital control grid. We hear about digital currencies or private banking digital currencies, but we can't really understand what that grid looks like. Well, it's being erected underneath our feet and right above our heads as they lay broadband and erect 5G towers. And now the FCC and Congress, led by Republicans, with apparently the blessing of Donald Trump, is moving very quickly to try to eliminate all local and state rights, but particularly local rights and local zoning authority to combat the erection of these grids. And it's basically the broadband that is being laid creates a grid. And this is how they will track us and trace us and control us and manipulate us. And as it stands today, they are moving forward with this. So she has some very important reporting that we are going to be talking about today on the SJ show as well. Of course, it is Wednesday, so we will be welcoming the amazing Dr. Mary Talley Bowden into the Joy Virtual Studio at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We have a lot to discuss in terms of health news and medical freedom. We're going to be giving you updates on all of that, and she has a fantastic show ready for you today, broadcasting on the SJ network and also her network as well, her massive Twitter following. It is On Call with Dr. Mary Talley Bowden. That is live right after my show from 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time to 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. She has two great interviews lined up for you. Of course, this network, we're broadcasting all over the US and the world. We're live on Twitter, Spreely TV, Roku TV, of course, this amazing Rumble audience broadcasting through Rumble Creator Studio. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, Substack, and of course, you can get the Shannon Joy Show via audio on any of your favorite podcast platforms, listening at your leisure every day. The SJ Network reaching upwards over 1.2 to 2 million views every single month, which is just absolutely amazing. Such a great partnership with Dr. Mary Telly Bowden, and she's an absolute star. She's doing a great job rolling out her new live show, and we're very thankful to the Wellness Company for helping us push that out and sponsoring her show. So we have a lot to get to today, but I want to get to all of you. Teletoast is with us, very first chatter of the day on the Rumble live chat. Teletoast, great to see you. Big win for Massey and the MAGA rejects who are truly America first. Wear it like a badge. This guy is my hero, not just in politics, but in life. It was a huge win for Tom Massey. He really was the tip of the spear on this, going up against his own party and paying for it with a primary opponent now sponsored by Donald Trump and MAGA, plopped right down in his state of Kentucky. He is the best conservative voice in Washington, D.C., and he now has to face a primary challenge because of his willingness to join up with Ro Khanna, the Democrat, and demand the release of the Epstein files, along with people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who are very thankful for her voice as well. This has been a almost 6-month endeavor, and it's wonderful to see, if there are two things that Americans can unite on, and these are the two things we're going to be talking about today on the SJ Show, because, of course, we're independent here, not left, not right, just the truth, straight up, no chaser, every day, because, well, both political parties are crazy, and the people who run things are crazy, and they are driving this country off a cliff, both the left and the right. And so we scrutinize them equally every day here on the SJ Show. But if there's one thing that I'm seeing emerge, it is unity. Regular Americans uniting on core issues, key issues. Right now, we're seeing Americans uniting on the horrifying impact of the inflation tax and the tariff taxes that have been inflicted upon this country for over 30 years, but have increased and accelerated in the past 5 years since the lockdowns of 2020, which was a weapon deployed against middle America by Donald Trump and his handlers in the military-industrial complex. We went over that with Sasha Latipova yesterday. Unbelievable interview with Sasha about what was the military-industrial complex and the rollout of the COVID scam, which was more about money and power than it was about anything else. But, Americans are uniting on the pain that they are experiencing at the grocery store for healthcare, for electricity, college tuition, energy, automobiles, you name it. Everyone is being pinched, and everyone knows it. We're also seeing the Americans unite on this issue of Epstein. This is polling overwhelmingly high in the 90% and into 90%. Americans want these files released. And it's really interesting to watch this play out across the country and to observe the left-wing media and the right-wing media and how they report this to their audiences, right? Both the left and the right want the files released. Why? Because it is common knowledge. It is well known that Jeffrey Epstein was a child sex trafficker. He was also a child abuser. And that is why he went to prison. It's also why his right-hand woman, Ghislaine Maxwell, also went to prison. We also know that in the process of convicting Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, there were thousands upon thousands of documents, likely hundreds of thousands of pages and photos and emails that were collected by intelligence over 2 administrations and 2 parties. So this started under the Donald Trump administration. It ended under the Biden administration and is now being continued into the second Trump administration. So this has spanned both left and right. And the cover-up has spanned both left and right. In those documents, those thousands of pages and hundreds of thousands of images and emails, We know, based on reporting from the New York Times, from the Miami Herald, and other outlets, that there are named pedophiles, named Johns, men who abused young women and likely young boys as well, potentially women. Hillary Clinton has been tossed out as one of those names. So we know that the trafficking happened. We know that it existed. That's why Jeffrey and Ghislaine were thrown into prison. What we don't know are the names, or what we haven't seen justice on are the actual men who raped children, who paid Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell to abuse and rape children. Justice has never been served for the thousands of women who were impacted by this child sex trafficking ring. Americans also know, because this has been reported on in both right-wing news outlets and left-wing news outlets, that Jeffrey Epstein was tied to Israeli intelligence and the Mossad, and also U.S. intelligence, the CIA. That is very evident and well documented in the reporting of people like Whitney Webb and her co-reporter Matt Goodwin. We have reporting from Nick Bryant. We have reporting from Michael Wolff. We have reporting from right-wing news outlets, right? It's all there. And so that's why this story is so important, because it does not only touch child sex trafficking, which is horrifying and used to blackmail heads of states, bureaucrats, leaders, politicians, and billionaires, very powerful figures, but it also points to and exposes a criminal enterprise, money laundering, weapons trafficking, all of the bad things that have corrupted Washington, D.C. and Western governments across the globe are wrapped up in the Epstein scandal. And so the release of these files and the exposure of these criminals and pedophiles is only the tip of the iceberg. And Whitney Webb has a very good tweet that we're going to look at in a moment that explains how important that is. The exposure of not just the child sex trafficking, but the criminal enterprise. But it's so fascinating because even in this story, right, after 6 months, Tom Massey, Ro Khanna succeed in getting this bill passed, which, by the way, had very few sponsors just as little as a month ago. But it was the pressure from the American people, the culture, that pushed this over the edge. If you look at right-wing news coverage, so I was listening to Jesse Waters on Fox News as part of my show prep, and they're reporting now on the Epstein files and the Epstein emails and the release of these files. And it's only Democrats that they're scrutinizing, right? Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, any Democrat that they can find, they will report on and scrutinize. They won't touch any of the Republicans that are being named, namely Donald Trump. You have to go to the left-wing news media outlets to find that reporting. So I hopped on over to the New York Times to see how they were reporting this story. And of course, all of the coverage over at the New York Times is about Donald Trump, calling the reporter Piggy, and how he was named in a lot of these emails, right? And it was even, and you saw this in the headline here, President Trump was filmed telling a female reporter, "Quiet, Piggy," when she asked him about the Epstein files. This reporter questioned the president directly about emails released last week in which the convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein wrote about his relationship with Trump and claimed that he knew about the girls. This is from the Times reporting, the Times of London. And so there's very still lopsided reporting. That's why this is a difficult story to report on. But the good news is, let's take this win. This is a win. Tom Massey did a good thing. And I know there are a lot of people out there, Debbie Downers and naysayers and have no fundsers, who want to say, oh, well, nothing's going to happen because, as you know, Mike Johnson and President Trump are both not happy about this. President Trump saying that, and Mike Johnson intimating that they are going to launch an investigation. If they launch an investigation and put Pam Bondi in charge of it, well, then that could close up these files again, and then we're going to have to fight another battle. And people are kind of pointing to Tom Massey as like, well, you suck. Here you did this thing, and it's not even going to work because they can do this, this, and this. That doesn't mean you still don't do the thing, right? We're only called to do what we can do from our corner of the world according to the platform and the power that we have. Tom Massey can't do everything, but he did something very brave. He crossed over the aisle and joined up with a Democrat on something that matters on the issue of principles and justice. And that was a good thing. So congratulations to you, Tom Massey. Congratulations to Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm not always on the same page with her and some of the other women. Nancy Mace is yet another one who stood up, stuck their necks out, and have been called traitors now by the president of the United States because they did the right thing. Let's give them credit for what they did. 2 weeks from now, a month from now, I might be on the different side of an issue with any of these people. But for today, I want to give them credit for that, and also the Democrats who stepped up as well. So this is a fluid story. And we're going to have Nick Bryant on. I'm working on Nick either next week early or after Thanksgiving to kind of reset on this story and take a look at where we are in terms of justice for these victims. But I think we need to push forward from this. And again, I think this is a good day. You know, it's not Tom Massey's fault that President Trump is going to try to put the kibosh on this. And I want to address another element as well before we get to the other headline, which is this very, very real threat of the digital grid and the techno-fascists locking in on this country. That's the biggest story of this presidential administration and Donald Trump. The fact that he's essentially, in the same way that he handed this nation over to Anthony Fauci, kind of, in the dark days of lockdowns in the March of 2020, in the first 6 months of his presidency, he essentially conferred all power and all authority to an unelected cabal of techno-fascists, tech bros, the PayPal mafia. And we saw them coming together again. By the way, Elon Musk is back in the fray. Elon Musk is dining once again with Donald Trump. Your girl told you 3 months ago that was a bit of fake fighting, him stomping off because his Doge wasn't getting what he wanted. Yeah, okay. Not real. It's all a joke. Elon Musk is, fully connected. He's still getting his government contracts. He's still getting his subsidies. He is still tethered to this administration and benefiting from sucking up about $1 trillion worth of your private information when he went in with his Hoover during the first few weeks of the Trump administration and sucked up, trillions of dollars worth of Americans' private data, from IRS data to Treasury data to Social Security data, you name it. Elon Musk has got it. And he put it up in his cloud. He has control over it. And believe me, he's going to wield that power. All right. That's on another issue that we're probably going to have to address in the coming weeks and months. But I do want to address something that my producer said as we were getting ready for the show today. And I see you all on the live chat. And it's something that we need, strident conservative. I'm not being a Debbie Downer to point out that Trump will ignore this law. It doesn't matter if Trump ignores this law. This then succeeds in exposing Trump yet again to a base. And Trump's credibility with his base, regardless of what people think about MAGA, is crumbling. This is why they need to create a new PSYOP called America First and put Nick Fuentes at the helm of it, right? Because Trump is losing control of his base, David Leach. And that's why it's important for Tom Massey to do the thing that he did, because the thing that he does helps to expose Trump and his cabal, which erodes trust and support from his base. Now, of course, they're going to frantically try to funnel that base into a new movement that they control. And as you guys know, what I've been telling you over the past couple of days, that is America First, and it is Nick Fuentes and the people surrounding him. That doesn't mean that doing the right thing isn't important. And the other element here, as I was talking to my Zoomer producer, TJ is the very lovely young man who produces the Shannon Joy Show every day, and he's a Zoomer. He's in college, sophomore in college, and does a great job. But I was talking to him. He's a big Trump supporter. He grew up. Trump ran in, for his first election when TJ was 9 years old. And he was a fan of Trump, watched The Apprentice and watched this entire thing play out. And when I was talking to him, he said, what do you think about the release of these files? And I said, I think it's a good thing. And we were chatting about it before I started the show. And I said, well, what do you think about the release of the Epstein files? And TJ paused. He said, I'm glad they're being released. And I think all Americans are glad they're being released, if they are even released. But then he went on to say, but I hope that Trump isn't implicated in them. I hope that there isn't anything that will implicate Trump in those files. And so then I said to TJ, well, why is that? Like, why, wouldn't you be glad if Trump is implicated in those files and that's the truth? Wouldn't you be glad for that? Because then it would expose a predator. The truth would be laid bare, and we could get someone who is really bad and take them out of power. And he thought about it for a minute, and I just thought it was a really important moment because, a lot of times, and he said, yes, of course, he understands that, but he just has this kind of emotional connection. And I think a lot of people have an emotional connection to Trump for different reasons. Some people, especially young men, felt so beat up by the leftist woke mob, cancel culture. Regular salt of the earth Americans felt so out of control about where the country was going under the Obama years. They felt like the left was gaining massive control and just smashing everything that was good and wholesome and American. And so people imprinted onto Trump as a savior, right? And that's an emotional connection. And it's something that I experienced as well. I mean, I remember that, before I kind of woke up, I was a Republican, I was a conservative, I was a big fan of Ted Cruz. And I remember, like, when you are in that type of emotional or psychological state with a politician or a political party or a political leader or a media person, someone that you listen to every day on the radio or watch every day on Twitter or Rumble, you begin to have, an emotional connection to them, and you take on their own baggage. And I remember during the primary of 2025, when I was desperate for Ted Cruz to win that primary because I thought he was the only guy that could win the election and the only guy that could set this country straight for a variety of reasons. That was just the way I felt about it. And I remember feeling stress all the time, like dreading, a video being released of him saying something stupid or messing something up, dreading a news story that showed that he was cratering in the polls, dreading something coming out from his past that would make him a villain and therefore, take away from me my hero, the person who I really thought was going to win. And about 8 months into that, I was like, Shannon, what are you doing? Right? Like, I'm not responsible for Ted Cruz and whatever his baggage is. Just as I was telling TJ, you're not responsible. If Trump is a villain, that's not your fault. That doesn't mean anything. It doesn't reflect on you in any way. And I feel like if we can get out, and once people become emancipated from the character or the person, the moment I was like, I'm never doing this again. I'm never imprinting on a politician again. I'm independent. If they're doing things I like, I'm going to like them. If they're doing things they don't like, I'm not going to like them. I'm a cold, hard calculator. It is business, not personal. Why on earth should I take on their baggage? And why should you take on their baggage? We need to be analyzing these politicians on a daily basis based on what they do. And if it comes out that they do bad things or have done bad things, then we shouldn't feel bad about it. We shouldn't feel depressed about it. We should feel like, hey, good to know. Why don't you go away forever, maybe to jail, and then we'll move on with saving this country from the bottom up at the local level. And that is something I think they use, psychological manipulation and propaganda to try to make us feel emotional about them. And I think that we just need to stop doing that. And I think we'll all be better off. And I see you all on the live chat. Yeah, Elon is back. Who would have thought? Spot on, Shannon, says CJ Rumble. Jen Patton says, here, Shannon. Yeah, I think we have to stop feeling emotional about these people. And we have to funnel them, or we have to filter them out quickly. Like, if things like that come out, we just need to be okay with it. This is why, by the way, people wonder why I keep the Ted Cruz poster. You see it right there in my studio. That was back in the day when I was a Ted Cruz fangirl, and that is an original Sabo. He was a street artist from Los Angeles, and he liked Ted Cruz, thought Ted Cruz was a badass, and so he put Ted Cruz's head on top of like a tatted up body with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, and I just thought it was great. I loved it. And so he sent one to me. He signed one and sent it to me. And I like political art, so I had it up for a while. I'm not a Ted Cruz fan anymore at all. I don't support him at all. I wouldn't even vote for Ted Cruz in the same way I wouldn't vote for 99% of Democrats, but he has a place on the wall, at least for now, here in the SJ studio. Honor Seeker, I see you on the live chat. Everyone's looking great today. We have Future Ez, who has joined us. Mr. Worthless Eater. M. Garth Hilton. You got to take pokes at the bear every now and again to make sure it's alive and that you are also alive. I love that. Teletos, at a minimum, it exposes their resistance. Yep. It is exposing a lot of people. Future Ez, uniparty corruption continues. One of the first deals the Democrats and the GOP made in the House is to protect their corrupt and criminal members from getting censored. That's right. Well, and they are working behind the scenes to create that digital control grid. So, by the way, we're going to keep an eye on the Epstein story. And again, we're going to get Nick Bryant. I was texting with him earlier today. We're going to get him on the show to talk about this and more. But we're going to go to break now, and we're going to come back. We're going to talk about the gathering of the tech bros and the techno-fascists in Washington, D.C., as everyone is reporting on this very important story that is the Epstein scandal and release of the Epstein files, maybe. They're also doing a lot to create the digital control grid, and this is happening very fast. This is accelerating very quickly. Now, the good news is, if you guys want to scroll down in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show, this is a phenomenal story that we're going to look at when we come back. It is from Wired Magazine just a couple days ago. And here is the headline. The data center resistance has arrived. A new report, multiple reports, finds that local opposition to data centers skyrocketed in the second quarter of this year. And despite Donald Trump and the Republicans being in power in Washington, D.C., much of that resistance is coming from Republican strongholds in Republican red states. We're also beginning to see again, right? Where is it that regular Americans, left and right, Democrat and Republican, can come together? Well, one of those issues is the Epstein files. Another one of those issues are data centers, the Manhattan-sized monstrous data centers, thousands of them slated to be built across the United States of America in mostly red states. Well, they are facing opposition across the country, and the Democrats are getting on board as well for environmental reasons, among other things. This makes my heart sing. I love this story. You are going to love this story. I feel as if there is an opportunity for constitutional conservatives to align with classical liberals and constitutional Democrats across the country who are normal and sober and out of the crazy WWE circus fracas that we see in Washington, D.C. They're done. We're over it. From the bottom up at the local level, we're going to be organizing to take our country back. And these data centers are going to be a huge fault line and a massive battle. We're seeing the little guy, David versus Goliath, beat Google, Meta, and the tech bros time and time again in places like Washington, Indianapolis, Indiana, and also in Virginia. One court ruling after another, legislation is being passed, and an infrastructure of opposition is being built. And the best part about that, it is bipartisan, Democrats and Republicans. After Thanksgiving, I'm going to introduce you to an amazing resource. His name is Levi Leatherberry, and he is as obsessed with localism and bottom-up organization as I am. And he heads up Free the People. It is, I think, We the People or Free the People. I'm not sure which it is. I talked to him yesterday. We had a long conversation about his organization and what they're doing in a bipartisan way across the country. And I haven't been this excited in a really long time. We have everything that we need. The culture is revolting. We are coming together on big issues that matter to all Americans. The economy, inflation, data centers, the Epstein files, and yes, very quietly, vaccines and the mRNA technology. Though we're not allowed to talk about it, 90% of the American population is rejecting the COVID-19 mRNA shots. And we're going to be talking about that with Mary Bowden. And so we're seeing, if you wade through everything, all of the distractions and the ridiculousness of America First and MAGA and the D versus R fist fight we see in Washington, D.C. and on left-wing and right-wing news media on a daily basis, and we get into the nitty-gritty of what matters to regular Americans, we're beginning to see a cultural turn, a cultural shift. And I, for one, am here for it. So we're going to look at this piece from Wired. The data center resistance has arrived. Also, an overview of a tweet from Whitney Webb that connects the Epstein scandal to big tech and the tech bros and the criminal financiers who have taken over this country, the criminal banksters, as well as, the who's who of techno-fascists that have ensconced themselves in Washington, D.C. surrounding this president. There was a photo pushed out by David Sachs, of all people, yesterday. While we're fighting over a lot of things, they are building the control grid. We're also going to look at this Renette Senum independent research on what is happening with that control grid, among other things. So we got a lot to get to in the next 15 minutes of the Shannon Joy Show before we welcome in our friend Dr. Mary Talley Bowden. So we're going to go to a quick break. We'll be back to continue this discussion on the Shannon Joy Show.
Hey guys, Justin here with the Satellite Phone Store. And with things like Starlink, satellite messengers and all that, are satellite phones still really something useful in 2025? Well, that depends. If you're deep in the backcountry, out at sea, or working in remote areas and need reliable voice communication, a satellite phone is still unmatched. Unlike messengers that only send a text message, or Starlink, which requires a battery and a big bulky antenna, a satellite phone doesn't require any setup, it doesn't require Wi-Fi, it's a grab-and-go solution that works anywhere in the world. Whether your livelihood depends on it or you're on some crazy expedition somewhere, having a satellite phone with you is the best way to communicate. If you're in an emergency situation, sending a text message may not actually be enough. So being able to hop on the phone with a medical professional or search and rescue and be able to describe exactly where you are may be the way that saves your life. So having a satellite phone, especially in 2025, is still a very useful tool.
I want to talk quickly, though, about Rocketdollar. They are new sponsors of the Shannon Joy Show. You guys are going to meet Henry Yoshida. We're going to do a full hour on the economic pain, inflation, and what regular Americans can do to protect themselves as we move towards recession, potentially depression, and conceivably even a currency collapse. You need to protect yourself. You need to protect your family. And one of the ways that you can do that is through a self-directed IRA. Go to rocketdollar.com Shannon Joy today. There's a free guide that you can sign up for where you can learn all about how to take control of your investments and your retirement. You can do that through Rocketdollar. It is rocketdollar.com/Shannon Joy. That is rocketdollar.com/Shannon Joy to learn about how you can invest in real estate using your own hard-earned retirement savings.
This is Jennifer with darkbags.com. I wanted to show you our latest product. This is our laptop sleeve that has a over-the-shoulder carrying strap, as well as these two straps on the side, so you can kind of hold it like a briefcase. What's special about this is that there's actually a Faraday bag built in to this backpack that fits up to a 17-inch laptop. So here's my laptop. I'm going to put it in. Once you put your laptop into this sleeve, your company can no longer track you, because they do track you after you log off of work and you put your computer to the side. They're still tracking you wherever you go. Another thing that's awesome about the Faraday pouch that's in this bag is that it blocks excessive EMF radiation that's being emitted to you, so that those harmful pulses will not reach you. And also, in case there's an EMP, this protects your electronics from the EMP. So not only does it fit your laptop, you can put your phone, you can put your wallet in here as well, and it'll be protected. There is cushioning on the sides, so it'll keep all of your electronic accessories safe in here. This will be available on darkbags.com.
Sorry about that, guys. We had a little bit of a glitch. I wanted to play a quick 3 to 4 minute video for you guys. I'm not sure if anyone or if you guys follow the Reese Report. He's on Substack. Greg Reese. He also has a great Twitter. Oops, hold on right there. Let me just shut this down. He has a great Twitter following as well. Basically, that was an overview of the digital ID. He explains it in a really relevant way. The digital ID provides government the ability to track, analyze, predict, and control persons' private activities, right? So this is what we are talking about in the building of the infrastructure. In order for the central banking digital or private banking digital currency to work with the digital ID, right, and all be linked to the social credit scoring system. So these are all the ways that they are going to track and control humans. They need an infrastructure. They need an actual physical infrastructure of broadband wires, both in the sky above your head, attached to poles, but also in the ground beneath your feet. And if any of you have had very intrusive new projects in your town or village to rip up all of the sidewalks, usually it involves a Starbucks coming to town as well. I believe, I'm wondering what they're putting underneath those sidewalks and what they're laying. In a lot of towns and villages, they're laying broadband. And that is something that Renette Senham talks about. But that's how they lock you in, right? So once all of this data is being connected, it has to be used to control. And so that's where the grid is. And Renette Senum, an independent researcher from Substack, really explains it very well, how that is being laid out. But according to Greg Reese, obviously it's the antithesis of individual freedom, and it will not require an implantable chip, as many have feared for decades. Evidence is now showing that biometrics such as your fingerprints and facial scans will do the job much more efficiently. And it kills me. My husband accepted the facial scan for his iPhone and the fingerprints, like he's putting it all. I don't do that. I reject all of it. But this is going to do the job for them. It's why more and more people have to know about how they're going to track and trace us. The aftermath of the COVID lockdown shows us how it's going to be deployed. So according to Greg Reese, the lockdown and compliance, masking, accepting the shots, was a beta test for the rollout of the digital ID and the control grid. And so there are two components here: what is happening in our physical communities around us and what is happening with our own bodies. Now, if you have enabled the facial scan or the fingerprint scan, it is what it is. I wouldn't do it again. I would turn it off and not do it again, and encourage everyone that not to do that. I don't do that. I think it's much harder for them to track us than they tell us and then what we think. But this is coming, and the federal government with Donald Trump at the helm is completely bought in, 100%. So we're going to have to organize. We're going to have to do a couple things. First, independent, individual resistance. So every man, the same way so many of us had to stand up and say, we're not going to take the shot. We're going to have to say, we're not going to do the fingerprint scan. We're not going to do the facial scan. We're not going to get the digital ID. If we have gotten the digital ID by accident in a state like Texas or Florida, we're going to go back and get a regular old driver's license to replace it. I'm going to do that here in New York State. So that's the independent resistance. We also need to talk to our family members. Thanksgiving is coming up, and this is a great time for all of you to go and talk to your family members about privacy and the creepiness of this control grid and the tech bros. They don't have to use their fingerprints or their facial scans. And I think that spreading the word about that is a great first step. And it's something that anyone can do. So there is a great website. I'm going to give you guys some resources leading up to Thanksgiving that you guys can use to share with your loved ones that are appealing to normal people. And so I'm going to be sharing that with you next week as we lead up for Thanksgiving, because that's something that every single one of you can absolutely do. The other thing that we can do is begin to resist locally from the bottom up. And that is what we need to resist against, is the FCC passing new rules that essentially erase the zoning board, your town board, your village board, state and local jurisdiction, and completely empower the telecom companies and the federal government to do whatever they want in your community. So they can build as many 5G towers as they want. In fact, some reports say they want a 5G tower every 750 feet. When those towers are built and enabled and they're connected to the broadband that is being laid, tons of it laid during the lockdowns, by the way, which Renette Senum overviews, how when they locked us down for months and months and months and months across the country, and this was heavily reported on in certain outlets, overnight, in the middle of the night, from 12 p.m. midnight to 6 a.m. in the morning, they had trucks deployed into towns and villages across the country, laying millions of miles likely of broadband wire, not only in the ground, but above your head along the telephone wires. And so that, if you want to imagine what the grid looks like, imagine your village and every street with these broadband wires laid that could connect with 5G, 6G, 10G, whatever it is that they roll out. And these are 25-year contracts that these towns and villages are signing with telecom. If the FCC gets its way, and this is urgent, this is why she named this Red Alert. This is linked in the show notes of the Shannon and Joy Show. This is the hill to die on by Renette Senum. I want to encourage you guys to follow Renette on Substack. This is a 4-part series. Volume 1, 2, 3, and 4 are on her Substacks. And she's a great communicator. She reminds me a lot of Leslie Manukian. She knows local politics really well. I believe she was a mayor at one time and a member of town board, but this is what she wrote. Red alert, this is the hill to die on. And that's the name of the series. The 5G surveillance framework, silently rolled out during the COVID lockdown, is about to go live. The FCC plans to illegally attach antennas in every neighborhood, superseding all local control, and the time to act is now. So as I covered last week in my interview with CHD's Miriam Eckenfels and attorney Scott McCullough, the FCC's alarming power grab. Now, she wrote this on November 9. There's a follow-up to this. The FCC's alarming power grab isn't just another drift towards digital dystopia. It's an all-access pass for the telecom titans to bulldoze community control with your neighborhood as their playground and your rights in the crosshairs. This is a red alert and, yes, an unapologetic call to arms. If you're tired of the corporate overlords shuffling the chessboard while we sleep, now is the moment to stand up and speak out. And she gave an update on the 17th. This hit her Substack just 2 days ago. Warning, immediate action is now needed. The underhanded 1-2 punch against local control hits tomorrow. Behind closed doors, Congress just resurrected a shadow bill to join forces with the FCC, launching a coordinated federal attack on local control. And this is happening tomorrow morning. So I'm going to see if we can't get, yes, M. Garth Hilton, the Substack link is in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show right here on Rumble. Also, if you guys are not connected to me on my website, if you haven't signed up for the Shannon Joy Show daily e-newsletter, then do that right now. So M. Garth Hilton, every time I use a source in my show, I link it in the show notes. And there is a link to this Substack and Renette's Substack in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show. So just scroll down and you should be able to find it. So she writes here, Congress just made, this is on the 17th, a sneaky move. They resurrected a dead 2023 bill that joins forces with the FCC in a coordinated federal attack to strip local communities of their say over wireless infrastructure. Now, we saw this type of language in the big, beautiful bill and in multiple executive orders and emergency declarations and executive memorandums, presidential memorandums. So this is part of Trump's alliance with the big tech bros and Stargate. And this is essentially to strip. We have seen a carve out immunity for AI and a carve out for telecom and for big tech in terms of local control and local jurisdiction over what they're allowed to do in states across America. It's a full-scale attack on federalism. And if we don't act fast, she says, the power to decide will be gone for good. So we need, obviously this is in reaction to this, which is the piece from Wired that I told you guys about. The data center resistance has arrived. Here's the good news. Okay. And by the way, TJ, if you can pull up that picture yesterday, David Sachs put out an X post, Elon Musk and all the tech bros gathering at Washington, D.C. to celebrate their takeover of the world. And they really think they can take over. In Great Night, he posted Great Night, and the post included a single photo. And this has had massive engagement. It's gone viral, 2.2 million views. And of course, it's, a joyful group of tech bros and billionaires. Elon Musk, who's going to be the first trillionaire because of what he was able to accomplish during Doge. Elon Musk, David Sachs, Cristiano Ronaldo, Donald Trump. Oh, I didn't realize that Donald Trump was in that. In the back, left row, left center. Do we see Donald Trump? I don't know if I see him in there. Larry Ellison, of course, Peter Thiel. He's the PayPal mafia. These are tech execs, advisors, guests, and these guys they're celebrating their control over our government, and they're going to move this forward very, very quickly. And they're probably celebrating because Trump pushed this out in a tweet. If you have any questions about Trump being involved in this, he is the head of the snake. He is not in control, but he is playing his role. And this is what he pushed out. Investment in AI is helping to make the U.S. economy the hottest in the world. That is a lie. The economy is not hot. It's in the toilet. It's in the dumpster, and everybody knows it. But he has to gaslight us all. He said, but over-regulation by the states is threatening to undermine this growth engine. Some states are even trying to embed DEI ideology into AI models, producing woke AI. We must have one federal standard instead of a patchwork of 50 state regulatory regimes. We can do this in a way that blah, blah, blah. Okay, so he wants federal oversight and they want to destroy federalism. I responded, obviously the tech bros have their knickers in a bunch because no one wants their monstrous databases, which we see in the pushback against the data centers across the country, their creepy surveillance, the digital control grid, and their crappy technology. Yesterday, I posted and reviewed an article, the big trend of 2026, according to some major outlets, is a complete rejection of technology. People want dumb tech. They want tech out of their homes. They want to substitute their smartphones for dumb phones and their smart cars for dumb cars. They want real mechanical devices that actually work instead of all of these crappy tech devices that break, that don't work and that people don't want anymore. As I mentioned, they're also creeped out by it. So this is why we're seeing them batten down the hatches and scramble now through the FCC and old resurrected 2023 legislation to try to obliterate federalism. Okay, so they're going to get their boy Trump. By the way, they own Trump, not the other way around. They put him in office. They own him. He says what they want him to say. So they get their boy Trump in, and they're going to try to rig the game by obliterating federalism. They're going to try this through the FCC. They're going to try this through legislation. Again, they're controlled by the Republicans. And they'll probably try this, if I were to guess, via emergency declaration or a presidential executive order. I could see them declaring, President Trump declaring a national energy emergency. He might have already declared that emergency, a AI emergency to combat China. So they're going to hit us at every angle. So we have to be ready 100% to hit back. So this is getting feedback from everyone. Daniel Horowitz has posted about this. He, in fact, posted a pretty relevant tweet from Brian Jacobson. I don't know if I follow him or not, but Daniel Horowitz retweeted this, and I agree. He said, "This is still bothering me, and I still think some perspective is helpful. I heard a term earlier this week that I absolutely loved, and it was called red washing. The Trump administration has taken the villains of COVID, Google, Meta, Amazon to a lesser extent, and because they donated to Trump, he has red washed them into the Republican fold. Without any overt changes in behavior or business practices, we have just accepted that they are now on our side." And it's not just on our side, Brian Jacobson. They run the show. They don't work for Trump. Trump works for them. Make no mistake about that. And this becomes much worse when you view it through the lens of this post by Trump. And it's the one that I just read. He is pitting these red-washed and still very woke companies against local governments and their citizens. Now you are woke if you oppose their agenda. That determination is made by Trump simply because they can and did donate millions of dollars, billions likely, to him, and you cannot. The virtue imparted to them by their donation supersedes your lifetime of conservative activism and your support of Donald Trump. So he's just throwing his base right off the cliff. Why? Because Trump can shoot them in the face on Fifth Avenue and they will still vote for him. because they are emotionally imprinted on to Trump. This is why we can't be emotional about politics. This is why we have to be cold, hard calculators. What have you done for me lately? Show me the money. Put a ring on it. If you haven't done something for liberty and justice and freedom and the Constitution and our founding documents, something sane for the economic situation that Americans are in, then I'm not voting for you. And by the way, if I don't believe that these elections are fair and balanced and credible, I'm not going to vote. Oh, and by the way, if you give me two false choices again, right? Two bad sides of the same coin. If you make me choose between Satan and Lucifer, if you make me choose between cancer and a heart attack, I'm not going to play. This is what sane, level-headed Americans from both sides of the political aisle need to begin to do. This is how we need to think. We don't love politicians because they don't love us. We don't trust politicians because they lie to us. We should never get in bed with politicians or carry water for them, whether they're left or right, because they always betray us. When they don't do what we want to do, we need to kick them to the curb and call them out. And if there were more in mainstream and conservative media who are willing to do the things that I do every day on this show, we'd probably have a different country, because my platform is too small. I don't have the big platforms because I'm probably suppressed, right? Because the truth does not have a place in American culture today because the criminals have taken over. And this is why we have to continue to fight back. And tomorrow we are going to hit this piece. You are going to love it. If you are thinking that resistance is futile and there's no reason to stand up and speak out, think again. The data center resistance has arrived. This is going to be what we're going to be focusing on in the near future, in addition to pulling those mRNA technology shots off the markets. And we're going to talk about that with Dr. Mary Telly Bowden. When we come back, we're going to have the crossover segment, 15 minutes of me and Dr. Mary Telly Bowden to talk about the medical freedom news that matters to you. And we're going to launch her into her show On Call with Dr. Mary Telly Bowden, which starts at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time sharp. We're so thankful to the Wellness Company for supporting her show. And so we're going to get started with that in just a moment. Quick break. When we come back, we are going to bring in Dr. Mary Telly Bowden. Keep it tuned right here on the Shannon Joy Show.
What's going on, guys? Jonah here again with Satellite Phone Store, and today we are visiting Roman again at the ranch, and we're going to be looking at some EcoFlow products and the benefits of them, not only at home, but also in the outdoor life. Let's get to it.
What's up, everybody? Roman again with Satellite Phone Store. Today I'm here with EcoFlow products. We got some really awesome products today between battery packs and solar panels. Whether you're at home during an emergency preparedness type situation, or you're just out with your friends hanging out in the woods, you're always gonna have the power that you need for whatever you have going on. So right here we have the EcoFlow Pro Delta 3, which is a whole home system. You can actually power your entire home with it. And then attached to that, we have the 220 watt bifacial solar panel. The cool thing about this is if you have it set out, you don't have to move it every couple of hours to make sure it's facing the sun. It's always going to be absorbing sunlight and always charging your battery packs. One thing I like about this system right here is, like I said, during an emergency situation, I can power my entire house with it. And then right here, we actually have the River 3 Plus. It's a much more portable system, but still giving you plenty of power for whatever you've got. Attached to that, we have the 60 watt solar panel, so you can continue to charge this if you're out in the woods or any situation where you're away from the power grid. I love having this because I can put it in my backpack, you can keep it in your car, and you can power any electronics you need. One thing I love about having this portable battery system is it allows me to stay on the go. A lot of times when I'm out in the woods or if I'm out recording, my camera runs out of batteries a lot sooner than I think. So I can keep them charging and then keep moving on with the mission.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. Final segment of the Shannon Joy Show. And of course, it is crossover day, Wednesday, the epicenter of a very busy week. And of course, it is the day that we get to chat with Dr. Mary Talley Bowden, host of On Call with Dr. Mary Talley Bowden, the hottest new medical freedom show on this SJ network, on her Twitter network, and also on Died Suddenly. Let's bring Dr. Mary Talley Bowden into the Joy virtual studio to talk about some of the topics she will be discussing today on Call. Well, how are you? You look great, of course. Another Wednesday, and you have a big show coming up. How are you doing?
I'm going to have two truth tellers, Ivan Rakelin and Jim Thorpe, Dr. Jim Thorpe. They are both very outspoken warriors.
Love that.
Strong men.
No, that's amazing. I can't wait to see what we learned today on your show. I absolutely love it. Last week was a pretty hot week. Some of the revelations that were revealed on your show, Dr. Stephen Hatfill and, his associate Gray, really, I mean, the candor was unbelievable at laying bare what is going on in HHS in terms of the suppression of any attempt to get to the truth about these mRNA shots and get them off the market. And that caused a lot of pushback from within HHS and the administration. You dealt with some of that pushback last week. What are your thoughts on the fallout from that show? Because it has a lot of people in the medical freedom community really concerned about where MAHA is going and whether or not that'll be a vessel that we can use to get these shots off the market.
Well, since that interview, we've had a lot of people come forward and rate what Stephen Hatfill and Gray Delaney said on the interview, saying that Stephanie Spear is very difficult to work with. She is a huge gatekeeper. Basically, all media is controlled by her. And if people want to read about it more, I have two Substack articles that I just published. One is a guest publication from Dr. Stephen Hatfill that I posted this morning, and the name of my dangerous misinformation. So he wrote a letter talking about all this, and then I wrote something yesterday because I think I'm the only one that has talked to Meryl Nass and Stephen Hatfill. Nass is a physician who, for some reason, threw the first punch against Hatfill. They have a long-standing animosity against each other, and she called me and she asked me not to interview him. They put my antenna up, and I believed her at first, and then I saw what Hatfill was writing, and I thought, well, I need to talk to him too. Yeah. And so we had Hatfill on he is a very interesting guy. He has a long history. He was involved in the whole anthrax catastrophe. He was blamed for it, falsely accused of it. And he managed to exonerate himself, defamation, and he won. But he has a very interesting history. He's written a few books. He writes with raw honesty, which I a lot. I like how he writes.
Okay.
And yeah, I think more people need to hear his story. It would be great if more media would contact him and get his story out there, because he was the most outspoken person in HHS. I mean, he never backed down he basically told Kennedy that we need to put a moratorium on all mRNA and DNA vaccines. He submitted a 9-page brief on this. He submitted a slideshow that I published on my Substack, so you can see what he submitted. And that was the final straw. That was basically what got him. And you look at the timing and everything, it all adds up. I mean, he said, there wasn't any reason for me to get fired that I was aware of in terms of, things that he did. It was basically coming out against the shots.
Wow. Well, I would like to interview him as well. I will certainly reach out to him, Mary. And it's actually interesting. My interview with Sasha Latipova yesterday, really blew my mind again. Sasha Latipova and Debbie Lerman recently sat down with Mary Holland over at Children's Health Defense. And it's interesting because Mary Holland is a very, very long time close associate of Bobby Kennedy Jr. And what they revealed in their COVID dossier is nothing short of absolutely devastating and stunning. And it's interesting. I mean, they released that in the spring of 2025, right? So it's been out there for 6 months. We haven't been able to get a lot of play with it. But the discussion we had yesterday, one of the reasons, and I think this is a massive elephant in the room, one of the reasons that we can't get the mRNA shots off the market and we can't get to the truth about the mRNA shots is because they were deployed not by Anthony Fauci and not by Birx or a lab leak or Donald Trump. This wasn't even necessarily the pharmaceutical companies that did this. It was an international military operation that was rolled out across Western democracies by intelligence agencies and the Pentagon, right? And that is so firmly established in the documentation. They've done such a meticulous job of laying that out. And Sasha was mentioning, she mentioned Stephen Hatfield, and she said she would love for him. I'm not sure if in his recent letter that he wrote, the latest piece that he wrote mentions BARDA, but BARDA played a huge role in this, and they actually drew on it. It was anthrax, and it was that scandal that led to the passage under the Bush administration of the PrEP Act. And that PrEP Act is what empowered HHS Secretary Bobby Kennedy Jr. or any HHS secretary without any data or any justification or any oversight whatsoever to declare a national health emergency and deploy immunity to every single person engaged in the issuance and the rollout of what they call countermeasures, which is the military deployment of a bioweapon against the American people. Like, I knew it, but hearing her explain it again yesterday kind of blew the lid off of it for me again, especially in context. I mean, this would explain why they can't. She also said that Bobby Kennedy Jr. called her a couple months ago and they had a conversation because she has him on the record saying that he understands everything that I just said to you and everything that she said. And he said to her, I know what you want me to do. And what she wants him to do is to reverse the declaration of emergency because he can do it without all. He's like, I know what you want me to do and I can do it, but I have a boss to answer to. And that boss is Donald Trump. What are your thoughts on that? Because to me, it all makes sense. And I think Hatfield could be a major, major ally and a major source of expertise on this. And I would love to talk to him about it further and just blow up everything that he's saying, because I think we're getting close to the truth. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if we can't get the cover, and if there's a cover up involving our government, it's probably CIA. I'm not an expert in this area, but that's sort of what historically has been the case. And I do think in his heart, Kennedy is on our side. I think he's not doing it because he wants to keep his job. And I think he wants to keep his job because his higher priority is getting to the bottom of them. That's my theory. And so he's not going to sabotage that. He knows that if he goes after mRNA, that he will get fired. And so therefore he's going to side on that and focus on autism.
Sasha Latipova shares your sentiment. She mentioned that yesterday. She does believe that he wants to do the right thing and would like to do the right thing. I am not so generous. I'm a cold calculator here. And, from my perspective, he could go in a blaze of glory, reverse the declaration, and then walk out and get back to advocating and organizing and bringing legislation from the outside in, using all of the information and everything that he has gained and learned from his 6 months at HHS. Like, that's what I would love to see happen. I feel like if he stays in there, his credibility is only going to be eroded. and it's only going to be harder and harder. I think at this point, like, let's rip the Band-Aid off. Like, what are you going to do now? Because it's only getting
I
worse.
agree,
you know?
but I agree, but I mean, that's why I just think he's, if it were me or you in that position, that's what we would do. We would do the ethically correct thing. But I think his priorities are just a little bit different, and he's, I've heard from credible sources he's planning on running for president. So that also weighing into his decision.
See, that's gross. That's gross to me. If you can't even get the job done, this is not your opinion. This is my opinion. That irritates me. Because if he goes in, cannot get the job done, and totally betrays the vaccine injured, the people who put him in that position of power, the 20 years of advocacy work that people have done on his behalf to get his ass at HHS, and he's going to betray us. He's going to refuse to act when he has the power to do so, and then try to run for president.
Well, I think he's got the autism moms though, but the autism moms would tell you a different story.
He's going to
see this on X. The autism moms go after us because they say, well, we were here first. We were pushing
bullshit,
and supporting Bobby way before you were, which is fine.
Hey,
but
well, that's bullshit, by the way.
Why do you say that?
Well, because my kid, I've been on this topic for 12 years. My children are vaccine injured. My babies were vaccine injured. I held my 2-year-old daughter in my arms while she suffered a massive febrile seizure, foaming at the mouth, had to be raced to the hospital post-DTaP polio. My son had epilepsy, diagnosed with epilepsy. He was having 30 to 40 petit mal seizures every day post-DTaP polio, and had to be on medication for epilepsy for 2 years. So those autism moms, if they have a problem with me, I've supported them in every aspect of their advocacy. But if they can't support those of us who have had kids that have been injured and they're going to play that game, that's total BS. And by the way, autism moms, he's going to betray you too. Watch. I'm sorry.
And I'm not saying all there's one autism mom that keeps coming after me repeatedly. Okay. So that's where I'm not saying it's all autism moms, but I just
because I love them. I work with them. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm totally speculating here because I've never had a conversation with Kennedy, so I'm just speculating. But I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And, it does seem that Stephanie Spear is a problem. I mean, like I said, after that interview, so many people came forward and were saying, oh yeah, she's a real problem. And, shutting down. So Hatfield, he was behind discontinuing 22 contracts with BARDA over mRNA vaccines. That was the most controversial thing that has been done at HHS since Kennedy took office. And Kennedy told Hatfield, get on the media, go do a bunch of shows. Well, Stephanie Spear shut that down. And he said that they've lost the momentum and everything fizzled. And, he blames her as well as some other people, which if you go to my Substack, you can read about the other people involved. But it's an interesting story.
Great work and great conversation with Hatfield. I'm really interested in what you guys are going to cover today as well. And you're doing an amazing job. And I really appreciate you. And we got to start your show. It's time. So we're going to get you ready to go. We're going to grab your guests and bring you in. Thank you again for everything you do. Make sure you guys are following Dr. Mary Talley Bowden on Substack and supporting her. Make sure that you are following Dr. Mary Talley Bowden on the Twitter, the X, and also subscribing to her because you can support her there. And make sure every time you're shopping at the Wellness Company, we're so thankful to the Wellness Company for supporting On Call with Dr. Mary Talley Bowden. And make sure you use that MARY promo code every time you shop. Anything you need, whether it is pharmaceutical, nutraceutical, a second opinion, a medical kit, you name it. If you're shopping there, use that MARY promo code because that is going to get you a discount and it lets them know that we sent you. All right, girl, you ready to go?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, guys, thank you for being with me today on the Shannon Joy Show. I'm going to close up my show tomorrow. Tiffany Cianci joins me. She's unbelievable. You guys are going to love this girl. She's unbelievable. We're going to talk about financial the financial attack on the US, which is a whole different topic, but very important. So make sure you tune in tomorrow. We'll be back again to do it all right here on the Shannon Joy Show. Hey everyone, it is me, Shannon Joy, and we are just a minute or two away from launching On Call with Dr. Mary Tally Bowden in just one moment. Before we get started with Dr. Bowden, I do want to thank our sponsors over at The Wellness Company. They're amazing sponsors. We could not bring this show to you every Wednesday live. We're breaking news on this program, pushing the conversation, elevating the discourse, and it's because of the great stewardship of Dr. Mary Bowden and for the sponsors at TWC. So today I want to talk to you about Clear Skin Ivermectin Cream, which, by the way, I'm going to be trying. I need this. If you've tried everything from cheek redness, which I have, or breakouts and nothing works, it's not your fault. The real problem might be deeper than you think. Introducing Clear Skin Ivermectin Cream from the Wellness Company. It's a prescription strength dermatologist developed formula that helps to reduce inflammation, balance bacteria, and restore your skin's natural glow. The triple action cream combines 3 medical grade ingredients for powerful results. Azelaic acid to unclog pores and fade your dark spots. Oh geez, metronidazole, they got to put those big words in there. Whatever, to control bacterial imbalances and redness. And of course, ivermectin to calm irritation and eliminate skin parasites that contribute to rosacea and acne. So together, these ingredients work to reduce bumps, swelling, and redness while supporting smoother, healthier, and more radiant skin over time. So this is formulated and compounded in the United States of America. It is FDA approved and trusted by doctors for visible and lasting results. So you can experience clear, confident skin with the Wellness Company's Clear Skin Ivermectin Cream. U.S. residents only. Right now, head to twchealth.mary. That is twchealth.mary, and use the promo code MARY to save $20 off plus free shipping. All right, thanks everyone. Without further ado, we are going to get started with On Call with Dr. Mary Tally Bowden.
Thank you, Shannon. Weak men create hard times, but strong men create good times. And today we have 2 very strong men. Our first guest is Dr. James Thorpe. TJ, if you want to bring Dr. Thorpe on. Dr. Thorpe is an OBGYN and a maternal fetal medicine specialist. It, is the audio working? Is the audio working? Okay, sorry. Okay, we are waiting on our guests. Anyway, so we're having Dr. James Thorpe today and Ivan Rakelin. James Thorpe is a maternal fetal medicine specialist. He is a warrior. He is very outspoken. He's one of the very few that I know in the field of obstetrics who has stated the obvious fact that these shots should not be given to pregnant women. He has done research. He has published on it. He has been persecuted. The American Board of Obstetrics and Gynecology came after him, and he stood up and he managed to get them to back down before anything went to the courts, which is very impressive. And then our second guest, Ivan Rakelin, he's a Green Beret. He's a constitutional attorney. He was sued by somebody in the government. Her name is Terry Aderim, who worked in the HHS department and in the defense area. And she sued him because she got fired when she was hired by Biden at the very end of Biden's term. She was snuck in right before Trump was inaugurated, and she was hired by the CIA. And Ivan Rakelin just publicized the fact that she was getting a new job. And Dr. Aderim, who is a pediatrician, sued Ivan Rakelin over the fact that she got fired, even though, I mean, he doesn't work in her department. He was just tweeting about the fact she got a new job. So we're going to talk to him in the last part of the session to see what's going on with that lawsuit. I believe we have Dr. Thorpe on, and we'll bring him in right now. TJ, is that right? Okay, sorry. Dr. Thorpe is not here yet. Okay. All right. So while we're waiting, I'm going to talk about a lawsuit that I have going on with the Federation of State Medical Boards that deserves more publicity. Federation of State Medical Boards is a nonprofit private organization, who has some sort of umbrella jurisdiction over all the medical boards. And we recently filed a lawsuit against them, and we're suing the Texas State Medical Board, we're suing California Medical Board, a few other boards, along with 3 other physicians, and it's over First Amendment issues. So the Federation of State Medical Boards, during the pandemic, and the height of the pandemic, and this was the fall of 2021, and this was after the rollout of the COVID shots that clearly weren't working. It was the 3rd and largest surge of the pandemic. The government was panicking. They wanted everybody in the country to get the COVID shots, and they didn't want anybody standing in their way of that happening. Doctors like myself, doctors, really across the country, none of us really knew each other, but we were all seeing the same thing, and the few of us that spoke out, well, the medical boards went after us, and they went after us very hard. I am still fighting the medical board. I have a hearing coming up on December 12th. They issued a public reprimand against me a few weeks ago, but they didn't let my attorneys in on the meeting. So the hearing actually was not a valid hearing, and so we have asked for a rehearing, and that will be on December 12th. But it has cost me over $250,000 to defend myself, and I will acknowledge that I didn't think that I would lose my license over this, but I wanted to clear my name. It's very important to me, and I could have given up. I could have just caved. They told me if I paid $5,000 and took 8 hours of CME and retook a legal exam called a jurisprudence exam, that my name, well, it would still be on my record, but I could put all this behind me, other than leaving a permanent mark on my record. So I just refused to do that. But it's unbelievable to me that, in fighting this, it has cost 4 years and $250,000 to do so. The patient wasn't harmed. The patient was quite happy. I was fighting for a patient. but I stepped on the toes of a hospital, and I was following a court order. So anyway, I'm one of the plaintiffs on this lawsuit against the Federation of State Medical Boards. The other 3 plaintiffs, 2 of them lost their license for writing exemptions for the vaccine. And the other one lost the license he sent an email to his patients during the pandemic, basically telling them, wait before you get this vaccine. Let's see what the data shows. It's too soon. Cautioning his own patients in an email, not on social media, just to, take heed and wait and not rush into getting the vaccine. It seems like common sense advice, in my opinion. So he lost his license over that. So the 4 of us are fighting this. It's very important that doctors are able to express opinions that might not match quote unquote consensus opinions, because as we learned during the pandemic, the science is never settled. And during the pandemic, that was, we were dealing with a new disease that none of us had ever seen before. And, instead of listening to doctors who were seeing things firsthand, the government doctors, from the safety of their bedroom over, Zoom calls were dictating how to treat COVID patients. So we're going to take a break now. And when we come back, we will talk to Dr. James Thorpe, and we will talk to Ivan Raiklan. So TJ, let's go to a break. And when we come back, we will talk to Dr. Thorpe.
Hi, Mary. Can you hear me? Anybody hear me? Let's see. Okay.
And on call with Dr. Mary Telly Bowden. We have figured them out. We are ready with Dr. James Thorpe, and we're coming back in just a minute. But I do want to thank, of course, the Wellness Company for being an amazing and generous sponsor of On Call with Dr. Mary Telly Bowden. So I want to talk about acne. For those of you who are experiencing stubborn acne that does not go away, one that ice, heat, or pain pills barely touch. What if you could target it at the cellular level instead of just numbing it? And that's exactly what TheraBlue was designed to do. TheraBlue is a pain reliever cream. It is a next generation pain relieving peptide gel that works deeper than the skin's surface. It's powered by AQA, a molecular delivery technology, and delivers peptides and botanicals directly into muscle tissue for legit lasting release. It has amazing ingredients that work at the cellular level to aid recovery and just make you feel better. So it has natural extracts like MSM, turmeric, white willow bark, arnica, and ginger to soothe inflammation, while menthol, camphor, and eucalyptus oil deliver instant cooling relief. It absorbs fast and leaves your skin feeling so refreshed, not greasy at all, ever. So right now you can get 10% off by visiting twc.health/Mary. That is twc.health/Mary, and make sure that you use the promo code MARY. Okay, we're going to get back to Mary's show. Without further ado, Dr. James Thorpe.
We're going to welcome Dr. James Thorpe, who is an obstetrics and maternal fetal medicine specialist. TJ, you want to bring Dr. Thorpe in? Dr. Thorpe is a warrior. He has been the most outspoken obstetrician I know. Hey, James. Hey, Jim. How are you?
It's such an honor to be with you, Dr. Bowden. Thanks for having me on.
Likewise. Sorry we had trouble getting you on. I understand that you narrowly escaped the American Board of Obstetrics coming after you, and you sent them a strongly worded letter that actually worked. Can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, it was a very interesting phenomena. Mary, what happened was that it was you and I and my wife Maggie have worked, and you're aware of our work, and so that we knew that the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists and the American Board of Obstetrics and Gynecology, as well as my third governing body, the Society for Maternal Fetal Medicine, we knew they were all captured. And the reason we knew was that literally, Mary, within the span of a human pregnancy from December 2020 to September 27th, 2021, they had completely reversed their position on pushing the vaccines in pregnancy. They went completely polar opposite. So we knew there was a money exchange. And as you know, my wife and attorney, Maggie Thorpe, had broken that with a FOIA request. So what happened was that on September 27th, 2021, just like your board, my board, American Board of Obstetrics and Gynecology, ABOG, sent out, they had the audacity, Mary, to send out a letter to 62,000 OBGYN doctors and all the subspecialists, including me, not just in the United States of America, but in all 6 provinces of Canada and in a few countries in South America, stating very clearly, you will not repeat any misinformation, or we will destroy you, literally take away all of your state medical licenses and take away all of your board certifications. So they colluded with the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. They colluded with the Society for Maternal Fetal Medicine. They colluded with the American Board of Medical Specialties by name, and they colluded with the Federation of State Medical Boards. So those 5 entities, and when they sent that letter out, I'm sure you and I had the same reaction. You, I'm sure, got a similar letter like all of the other specialties did. And it was a letter of unbelief. I was a board examiner for the American Board of Obstetrics and Gynecology in Dallas. This center, the National Center, is in Dallas, Texas, not too far from your home. And I was an examiner at the before the turn of the century, at the turn of the century. And so these were my contemporaries. And so I put a call into then executive director, Dr. George Wendell, who refused to talk to me on the phone. We had an email exchange, and literally he said, "You will do this, or we will remove your licenses." And I said, "We'll see about that." And so I sent around some, he didn't appreciate this very much, but literally this was communism. So I I stole their logo as well as the other two organizations, and I put a red hammer and sickle over it, and I dispersed it on my social medias. That didn't go over very well, but I enjoyed it. And by within 3 months, I had written an open letter to all the officers of the American Board of Obstetrics and Gynecology. Now, it was about a 15-page, it was really a 98-page letter, Mary, but the body of the letter was about 15 pages. All of the other pages were 1,019 peer-reviewed medical journal publications documenting death and complication from the COVID-19 vaccine in just 12 months. So I had read all of those, and I had put them in the context of references in the bottom of that letter. I also did the first VAERS, Vaccine Adverse Event Registry System analysis of the obstetrical outcome in just the first 10 months. And Dr. Bowden, it was a bloody disaster. It was, no pun intended, it was awful. And I published that in an open letter format. It went viral. And it was, I had a little bit of assistance with my wife, an attorney, Maggie, in putting together that letter. Not a word, dead silence since then. They knew that I was right, and they knew they were wrong. They knew I had the goods on them. They didn't want to get in a lawsuit with me because there would be the discovery process, and they would just get in more trouble. So they just let me be. I'm still practicing, and I'm still board certified.
Well, I have asked, if you are watching this right now and you are on X, do me a favor, and in the comments, please tag them. I left their handle in the comments on X. Please tag them. Let them know that we're talking about this. Are you aware of any other obstetricians that they came after, or were you sort of the one and done, and once you shut them up, they went away?
I think that once they read that letter and they realized that it circled the globe, and they realized what they had done to 62,000 OBGYN doctors, I'm not aware. Nobody else has stepped forward like I have. Now, my dear friends in Florida, Dr. Kimberly Biss is a general OBGYN doc. She's amazing. She's come in along my side, and also Dr. Dan McDyer in Jacksonville in Florida have come along my side. So it's just us, because everybody else is severely intimidated. You know how anxiety provoking it is to get a letter from the board like that. Nobody knows better than Dr. Bowden. And you've stood up like an amazing hero, just an incredibly courageous warrior. And by the way, you and others, with your courage, your boldness, your honesty, your integrity, you and Peter McCullough, Pierre Corey, I could list off more. there's so many of you. You really motivated me to stand for the truth with you all.
Well, you know, what's interesting is we all came together from different parts of the country without knowing each other. We all came to the same conclusions just based on mostly our clinical experience, which, I mean, I'm sure you have lots of stories to share. What's one that really stands out in your mind? I know you recently had a patient with Guillain-Barré following the flu shot, and I want to get to that. But first, give us an example during the pandemic of a patient you saw where they got these shots and tragedy occurred.
Well, there's so many of them, and I outline that in my book. You probably see behind me, and the name of that book is Sacrifice: How the Deadliest Vaccine in History Targeted the Most Vulnerable. And so I would say to chapter 7 of that book, and by the way, every dime of proceed from that book to me goes into a 501c3 at the wellness company called the Wellness Initiative Fund, and they're matching all of Maggie's and my donations, and it's only for the vaccine injured. And we've already made 3 grants. But chapter 7, wonderful. This is a true story, Dr. Bowden. If this doesn't send shockwaves up and down your listener's spine, nothing will. This is a true story, absolute 100% true story. The names were changed to remain anonymity, but this is a long-term friend of mine, and their son and daughter-in-law, completely normal pregnancy before the shots, 2019, beautiful baby. Got the shots, 8 consecutive dead babies. You say, Dr. Thorpe, how that doesn't make any sense. How can you get pregnant 8 times? Well, 2 of them were sets of twins. Some of them were early miscarriages. Several of them were fetal deaths. And the last and 8th, Mary, the name of this chapter is called 8 Candles. The last one was a week before her scheduled cesarean section. And she had a massive abruption, a massive life-threatening abruption, which means for your audience, the placenta completely separated, rushed her to the hospital, emergency cesarean section, dead baby, and multiple units of blood, and we almost lost her. This has been my life for the last 4 years, 5 years.
Well, that's just awful. And so can you clarify what the current recommendation is from our government and from the American College of Obstetrics? And it seems a little muddy to me. Are pregnant women high risk? Are they under that umbrella of high risk? What is the official recommendation at this point?
Well, it's not surprisingly, it is confusing to you and to me and to everybody else. In May, I was asked to testify again in the Congress, and I was with a team of experts, with Senator Ron Johnson, and they asked me to address the issues of pregnancy, which I did. A week later, I think that was around Memorial Day. The day after Memorial Day, maybe, then Secretary Kennedy, I believe the president, and Jay Bhattacharya, and also Marty McCreary stood up and said, we are no longer recommending pregnant women be vaccinated, period. Well, apparently the monstrosity of unnecessary, way too many employees of the HHS, CDC, FDA, they didn't agree with him, so they really knifed him in the back. They never actuated those recommendations. And now allegedly they've come back and said, oh, well, women are high risk, so they need to get the vaccine. But those three governing bodies that I spoke about, American Board of OBGYN, American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, Society for Maternal Fetal Medicine, they're pushing them. They're criticizing Secretary Kennedy and the HHS, and they're saying, don't listen to them, listen to us. Well, they're purchased, they're bought, and it couldn't be more corrupt. And Dr. Bowden, you're too young to remember the disasters of thalidomide and diethylstilbestrol, but I lived through the consequences of those. We knew better. The golden rule of pregnancy should never, ever be broken in pregnancy, ever. We learned our lesson, but yet they continue to do this, and they ignore the 10 studies of vaccinated versus non-vaccinated that you're well aware of that have shown a dramatic detriment to those children vaccinated. And that brings me to one of those studies. And please allow me to indulge myself in this comparison, because nothing could be a greater contrast to Dr. Mary Talley Bowden and Dr. Marcus Zervos. And I know you know that name, but you compare and contrast these two individuals. They couldn't be more desperate, separated, a wider chasm on the spectrum of evil and good. Here you have Dr. Bowden, and I'm speaking to your audience, who has put everything on the line, everything, her life, her reputation, her family, her children, everything. She does it all for her commitment to truth, for her commitment to her patients. She's been through hell and back. And then you have Dr. Marcus Zervos. And I don't call too many people out. I don't pick on too many people, except those people that are killing my pregnant women, preborns, and newborns. I do take certain exception. So let's contrast Dr. Mary Talley Bowden with Dr. Marcus Zervos, who is the senior author on the Henry Ford Hospital system. Now, what happened? Short story, I'll try to make it as short as I can, but Del Bigtree of ICANN Network down there in Austin knew that Henry Ford Health System was the perfect health system to do the non-vax versus vax and look at the outcome of the children. And so he flew up and he approached Dr. Zervos, who, by the way, was the hero. He was involved and diagnosed the Flint water crisis, which many of your viewers are probably familiar with. So Del Bigtree said, Dr. Zervos, will you do this study? And will you commit to publishing the results no matter what the results are? Dr. Zervos said, yeah, fund me, we'll do this, whatever, we'll do it. We'll do the study. It'll be meticulously done. Well, he did the study, but he realized what he did. He's such a evil person and a spineless, gutless wonder that he knew that he had an ace up his sleeve, that he would cook the books. So he would cook the books and fraudulently make the study look like there was a benefit to the vaccines. So he had planned that, in my opinion, that's my view. So in fact, when it came down to reckoning, he did cook the books, but the adverse multiple other variables and chronic diseases and deaths and neurological injury, cardiac injury, he covered up the autism he did a pretty good job with that. But there were so many other danger signals that were so strong and so robust that he couldn't change them. So he refused to publish it, Dr. Bowden. He refused to publish it. So Del Bigtree flew up to Detroit. By the way, my alma mater, Wayne State University School of Medicine, Henry Ford Hospital System, well known to me, and met with Zervos. And he had a hidden mic and a hidden camera because he didn't trust him. Now, that would have been illegal in Florida, but wasn't illegal in Michigan. And he asked Zervos, you promised me you'd publish this. He goes, the outcomes are too different. There's too many damages in the vaccinated children. I can't publish this, or I'll be like Peter McCullough. Dr. Peter McCullough, by the way, was also employed by that system, Henry Ford Hospital System, and for at least some time, and they probably knew each other. He actually called McCullough out by name. He said, I don't want to be another Peter McCullough and fall in disfavor and lose my paycheck and be fired. I'm just not going to do that. So here you have a pathetic, really pathetic disgrace to the human race who doesn't have the emotional, the moral, ethical integrity to put his reputation on the line and lose a paycheck. And he injures and kills countless number of global children. Because as goes the United States of America, so goes the rest of the world. How can you, to see this stark reality of Dr. Mary Talley Bowden versus a despicable, pathetic, gutless, spineless wonder jellyfish, Marcus Zervos, I hate to even call him doctor. This says it all. I rest my case on the contrast.
Well, yeah, if anybody is curious, that movie is called An Inconvenient Study, and it really rattled me. And it really confirmed, what we all learned during the pandemic is there's cover-up involved, and these vaccines that we were all told were safe and effective have never been properly tested the way we thought they were. So that movie is very eye-opening, and it's just further confirmation that the whole vaccine industry is just built on lies and not truth and transparency. Well, unfortunately, we have run out of time, Dr. Thorpe, but I really appreciate you coming on, and we'll have you on soon because we really only scratched the surface. But I will leave a link to your book in the comments. It's called Sacrificed. And remember that if you buy, wait, is that right? Sacrificed?
That's right. Sacrifice.
Yeah. If you buy it, the money goes to help the vaccine injured, which is huge. Because the vaccine injured have been completely abandoned by our government. Only 0.2% applied for benefits, received them, and at this point it's too late unless you only have a year after the injury to file for a claim. So please buy the book, and that money goes towards helping the injured. So thank you so much, Dr. Thorpe, and we'll have you again soon to dive in deeper on all that data with the pregnant women that you've been seeing and reporting.
It's been an honor.
And we're going to take... Well, thank you. Good to see you. And we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we will have Ivan Rakelin.
I was peeking around at the Wellness Company website for their new beef boxes and the beef products. As I mentioned in the last segment, the Wellness Company is getting into the food game, and it could not come sooner. They have these amazing beef boxes. They're USA small farmed beef boxes, mRNA and vaccine free, grass fed, grass finished from local American farms. And the website is amazing. Right now, you can get $85 off your very first beef box from the Wellness Company. This is the company that so many Americans trust. When healthcare institutions fell apart during the dark days of COVID, that was when the Wellness Company stepped in with such critical products and services. Now, as the food industry is falling apart, our farmers, our ranchers, and more Americans are very concerned about their food supply being injected with mRNA technologies and all sorts of vaccines. So if you want to support the Dr. Mary Telly Bowden show, On Call with Dr. Mary Telly Bowden, make sure you support the companies who are supporting her, and that is the Wellness Company. So why don't you go to twc.health/Mary right now today, use that promo code MaryFarms and save up to $85 on your order. Really thankful for the Wellness Company, really thankful for Dr. Mary Telly Bowden.
And we're back with the infamous Ivan Raiklin. This is our first time talking. Very nice to meet you, Ivan. I've seen you on X. You're fiery. Can you hear me? I don't think you can hear me.
There.
Are you? I can hear you.
There, you're back.
Okay, perfect. All right. So we have Ivan Raiklin, who is a huge warrior, very feisty. He's a Green Beret. He's a constitutional lawyer. I think you've worked for CIA or FBI or something like. You've got some intelligence.
No, neither.
At one point, right?
The Defense Intelligence Agency, the DIA.
Okay. Okay. Well, whatever. It's and you have been in an interesting lawsuit. So most of us COVID warriors are suing people, but you are actually on the other end of that. You have somebody, a COVID Nazi coming after you, which is shocking. And I hope so I tried to tag her. Her name is Terry Adarim. I think I'm saying that right. She is listen to this, because she gets very bothered when Ivan talks about on social media. So let's all tag her in the comments so that she's watching us. And I don't know, is the lawsuit still active against you, Ivan?
Yeah, so let me get folks kind of up to date on what's going on. Obviously, I've watched your work, and I want to say thank you, publicly, of all the work that you've done to fight against the COVID Nazis that you call, the COVID tyranny. So I recently retired, I guess, August of 2022, and from the military, and I have essentially taken it upon myself to be as a hobby, fight tyranny. And one of those components of tyranny was the whole COVID op, right? I think it's a massive component of the last 11 years of treason, as I like to call it. And when you look at that particular subcomponent of the 11 years of treason, that category, obvious names come up: the Anthony Fauci's, the Andrew Cuomo's, the Newscoms of the world, right, at the state levels, and then Debbie Burks and a lot of those bigger names. But what a lot of people fail to miss is that, and I always said this from the get-go, the hardest nut to crack for the reversal of the illegal actions and activity of our government and institutions will be the department, what used to be the Department of Defense and now the Department of War. So what I like to say is, when you're thinking of overall the origins of COVID and how Fauci funded the lab incident, and it was essentially the architect for the whole COVID op at a big picture level, at the national level, within the Department of War, like Fauci's name is synonymous with the name that you just mentioned, because she happened to be the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Health Affairs. And I'm not sure if you're able to screen share here. I think actually I'm able to screen share. If you don't mind, I can pull up the actual memos that we're going to refer to kind of discuss the lawsuit and how it came to fruition. Is that something that is okay with you?
Yeah, if you know how to do that, go for it. I have no idea on my end. Maybe the producers can help.
So, no, this is perfect. So bottom line here is that I was using my First Amendment, like I always do, to the maximum. And I always like to increase our First Amendment landscape. And so that entails moving the Overton window, which you were participating in, pushing it back against COVID. And so I essentially said that she was behind the unlawful implementation of COVID within the Department of Defense, because even though Lloyd Austin, what I call the acting fake secretary under a belligerent, illegitimate regime of yesteryear, wrote an order, it was written lawfully because it only mandated FDA approved products that were actually legitimately FDA approved and then subsequently produced to then be consumed in entities or places where the BLA license, the Biologic License Agreement, allowed for those products to be created in to meet the necessary requirements of the FDA. Well, that never took place. And so what was actually being consumed, distributed and consumed by military service members was not the FDA approved product. And so even though that was the case, in September...
What? Real quick. Why did they do that? Do you know? Like, why did they not just put out the FDA approved product? Why did they use the other product that was under EUA? Or what did you,
so when
what
you
do you
say
think?
they,
Why?
when you say they, I'm assuming you're referring to why did Lloyd Austin and the entire Office of Secretary of Defense, or are you talking about the FDA?
Well, okay. So from what I understand, there were two versions of the shot. There was an
right. So the
EUA
one that was
version
under emergency use authorization was the Pfizer BioNTech, right? It was the Moderna first one, and then it was the J&J. All three were under emergency use authorization. And when you read the law, there's a new documentary that just came out. Sam Shumate just put it out on his X account. If you haven't seen that, and as well as the Terminal CWO Telegram, I highly urge you to watch that. It lays it out, the legal framework. But in summary, I'm going to explain it this way, is that an emergency use authorized product requires that there be what's called informed consent. And so you have the right of refusal to say, you know what, great. I appreciate you informing me about this new product. I take the personal decision of weighing the risk versus reward. And I'm going to say thank you, but no thanks. Have a nice day. When there's the only time that doesn't have to take place, where it can be coerced and compelled only in the population of the Department of Defense service members, is when a president writes a waiver to that particular legal framework. That was never done. Okay. And it's only FDA approved products such as the Pfizer BioNTech, Pfizer Comirnaty version of the jab, the FDA approved one purportedly. That was the only one that could be compelled, because that was the first one that was FDA approved in August of the following day, August 23rd, 2021 is when FDA approved it. And August 24th was when Lloyd Austin, the fake Secretary of Defense, put his order out saying that you can use interchangeably, but you can only compel the FDA approved one. The problem with that is that the FDA approved one was never created. Like, the concoction was never mixed together to create. So I'll use an example. If this is the emergency use one, and this is the FDA approved one, this one here was never created. It was just a piece of paper saying it was.
But why?
So that,
why?
Because the legal framework says that if you're taking the FDA approved one and you're injured, mutilated, murdered, then you're going to have recourse against the big pharma companies, meaning Pfizer, and effectively Albert Bourla, the CEO, who's constantly invited into this White House, right? Which is disgusting and unacceptable, but we'll get to that. So this one here, if you're injured, mutilated, murdered, well, guess what? the insurance companies are just going to say, sorry, you just committed suicide, because it's clear that the law says that if you consume this emergency use authorized product, you're taking on all risk. And the big pharma company is taking on zero of the risk. So we're going to say, this thing is FDA approved. We're not going to make it, but we're going to compel you to take this one. A total bait and switch. And the way that worked in the Department of Defense at the time, I'm going to say Department of Defense because this is what it was called at the time, is that Lloyd Austin said that now that we have this approved one, we'll accept if you take this one, but you can't sue. But this one doesn't exist. But the implementation memo that came a month later, several weeks later, which was signed by the lady that you just introduced, the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Health Affairs, she said and compelled that you have to take the emergency use authorized one. That's called, where I'm from, and with my closest 7 billion friends, we would call that an unlawful order. So what does that unlawful order look like? Therein lies the screen share, if I may. Stand by as I pull it up. There it is. So screen share. And hopefully there it is. So let's zoom in.
Yep.
We take a look. Mandatory vaccine of service members using the Pfizer BioNTech and Comirnaty COVID-19 vaccines. She's mandating the emergency use authorized one. DoD healthcare providers will use both BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine interchangeably for the purpose of vaccinating service members in accordance with Secretary of Defense memo, mandatory blah, 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 the one that Lloyd Austin signed on August 24th of 2021, the day after that FDA approved the thing that didn't exist. This was dated, you can see here, it's hard to see, but September, 14th of 2021. Well, problem with that is when you look at this memo, so an Assistant Secretary of Defense is a lower rank than an Undersecretary of Defense. So on May 7th of 2025, the Undersecretary of Defense says the implementation, says here, January, now Department of Defense has since rescinded coronavirus 2019 vaccination mandate, which was unlawful as implemented. That is a massive statement, because it is now the Undersecretary of Defense on behalf of the Secretary of Defense is saying that the implementation of that unlawful order, meaning this thing right here, was unlawful. So riddle me this.
Wait, when was that second letter produced?
May 7th of this year. Oops, let me get over here. We got a problem, don't we?
Yeah, and then that's what resulted in reinstatement, right, of people in the military.
Yeah, so now we're at a point, let me stop the screen share. Now we're at a point where the Department of War is telling the world that that memo signed by the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Health Affairs was unlawful, which means if I'm exercising my First Amendment over the last several years, explaining that the architect or the author of that memo promulgated an unlawful order that resulted in deaths, let's just say that there were some deaths associated with that. And I think the DMED data, the Defense Medical Epidemiological data that I was shown before it was manipulated, would support that. Also watching what you had been advocating the last several years, also what Teresa Long, with Doc Pete Chambers, what Sam Sigalov, what Sam Shoemate, what Terminal CWO, where should I stop? Because there's so many examples of it. Dr. McCullough, Dr. Robert Malone, everybody out there that was talking about this basically showed evidence to include CDC's own Wonder database, the Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, shows to this day 38,000 plus were slaughtered as a result of these jabs. And the highest number were from the Pfizer product. Well, this memo right here, folks, I'm going to bring it up again. This was at a time when the Pfizer one was the only one that was quote unquote approved, but not created. And so how many service members died as a result of this unlawful order? If you can show that there were several, and there's evidence to support that, then to say that an individual was at least a causal link with this unlawful order, with those deaths, like what words would you describe that individual?
Well, don't we have that information? Shouldn't that information be very easy to get?
I'm not sure if it's easy to get, but it's accessible, and it will be brought forward in very granular detail should we have to go to that stage of the litigation, which we will. I'll say this. Let me ask you this. Hypothetically, if someone signs an unlawful order and death results from that unlawful order to the tune of, say, 10, 100, several hundred, would that meet the threshold of genocide? It's a debatable point, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
So then if I were to
It's like sending everybody to the gas chambers,
like that,
right?
right. If I were to use language like that, that's truthful, can I be sued for defamation when it's truthful?
Do you
You
know
can try.
Terry Adaram? Do you know her? Have you ever met her?
I have not.
Right. So you just tweet something about her and she's going to sue you?
Yep, kind of like the FBI director's future former ex-girlfriend, right? The future former
Right.
FBI director's future ex-girlfriend is doing the same thing, right?
Right. Well, okay. So, and hey, I've been on the other end of that. I had a hospital come after me viciously. But I wasn't a public figure, and they said I was dangerous. And when I basically said, all I said was vaccine mandates are wrong. But I assume Terry Adaram is a public figure. Am I correct?
Well, she was a senior official at the Department of Defense, right? So all I did was I was hoping I laid a mousetrap, because usually if you watch kind of how I operate, I like to lay mousetraps, and then with a nice big fat thing of cheese. And so luckily in this instance, the mouse took the bait, because now it puts everyone in a position of being able to, I'm happy to disclose all my stuff. I've already been scrutinized and looked at by the Biden criminal syndicate. I've been investigated more than Trump, easily, across DOD, DOJ, DHS, Intel community. Why? Because I was an insider. And so they were able to navigate unlawfully amongst all that, to include Jack Smith, right? So they already subpoenaed and looked at all my stuff. And I've over almost 24 investigations that I know of were conducted on me. Okay. So great. Now it's our turn. So they've already done discovery, if you will, and they can do it again on me, whatever. But it goes both ways, right? Which is I'm happy to do. But the problem with that is I'm kind of in a bad position, because the lawsuit that was filed against me, it's what's called failed to state a claim upon which relief can be granted. So it doesn't even if all the inaccuracies and factual inaccuracies and lies that were included in the complaint are considered true, it still doesn't meet the threshold of defamation. And oh, by the way, also I'm being sued for conversion, because she thinks I took ownership of her Twitter account and her direct messages. I don't have that. The only direct message that I have was provided to me by a third party that direct messaged her and screenshotted their own direct message to this woman and sent it to me. And so all I did was screenshot and shared it. I'm like, oh, interesting.
Well, so I thought the case was dismissed, but with prejudice.
So it was
with prejudice.
It's called
no, without.
No,
without
so
prejudice.
it was against me. It was dismissed without prejudice, giving the plaintiff, meaning her, 21 days to refile, which at the 11th hour on the 21st day, the refiling was submitted with several hundred more pages of the complaint, amending it.
Wow.
Nothing really new was added. And then we were supposed to have a hearing on Halloween, but the judge decided to make a decision on the pleadings, meaning on the paperwork, and not have a hearing. And then the plaintiff amended for a second time the complaint, but this time, lo and behold, she added several defendants, because I'm not the only defendant here. I'm big time, doctor. I'm at the levels of the CIA. The whole CIA is being sued. The director of the CIA,
Wow.
the entire intel community in the form of the director of national intelligence and Tulsi Gabbard, a few other defendants, and me, private citizen Ivan Raiklan. Why? Because I love exercising the First Amendment by spitting truth. That's very painful. You know the whole adage, the truth always hurts? Wow, it must have hurt really bad to be able to launch a lawsuit. So I'm now in a position now, basically because the government was shut down, we were in this holding pattern. And so we're waiting on the government defendants to respond to their side of the complaint as defendants. So when was it? Last Thursday that the government was reopened, Wednesday, Thursday. So basically the next Wednesday, right before Thanksgiving, I think is the deadline for the CIA, John Radcliffe, the director, Tulsi Gabbard, the DNI, to respond on, because they're being sued because they claim that my First Amendment sounds that were truthful resulted in her being fired in the following sequence of events. Mr. Raiklan made sounds that were presented to Laura Loomer. Laura Loomer went to Donald Trump in April at a meeting to recommend that he contact Director Radcliffe to go ahead and fire this woman, because after the election, she went and started working at the CIA. Okay? So there you have it. None of it's true.
Well, and
I didn't communicate with Laura
she's too
Loomer.
scared.
She didn't recommend to Donald Trump the name you mentioned, and he didn't know to even call John Radcliffe. It's like, it's so hilarious.
Well, I noticed how she's too scared to say Laura Loomer, right? Because logically, wouldn't you think Laura Loomer would be part of this lawsuit?
Well, that's if you're dealing with someone that's logical and rational. No one can make sense of this lawsuit. And so, which begs the question, who's the attorney of record? I know who it is, and we'll have to go through the motions, and already won once, and we're going to move to win again, and then it's going to move on to, so as we transition from defense, hopefully in the short term, we'll go into offense. Whether it's I'm going to go on offense whether I'm a defendant or a plaintiff. It doesn't really matter, right? It's just I'm a defendant in really name only, right? Okay, great. But it provides a venue to litigate the entire unlawful, what we just laid out, okay? And it allows us to inform a court, a federal district court, to go ahead and see the evidence. I mean, it's so clear. I mean, that I just presented, and her involvement in it. And my statements are factual statements that most people maybe years ago would have said that you're crazy, whack job. But the institution known as the Department of War agrees with me through the Undersecretary of Defense, Undersecretary of War now. And so we're going to move forward. Hopefully in the next week or so, we're going to get a response. And it's funny and fun because I'm literally being defended by the CIA and the DNI because they're co-defendants. While I just sit back and relax as the DOJ defends the CIA and the DNI, and I'm just like this bystander watching it, laughing from the sidelines.
Well, but what if, is there a chance they'll settle, and then will you have to settle if they want to settle?
No, it doesn't work that way. I'm not settling I'm settling for the maximum. You think I'm just going to fake this Department of Retribution, the Secretary of Retribution? No, I'm going to live it till the end. So my goal in all of this is that even with elements of this administration, to include the White House, that want nothing to do with COVID accountability, we have enough people now being reinstated and more being reinstated. And as more people like you and me are more vocal, like there's no option. Just like what Thomas Massey did and forced the vote nearly unanimously with the Epstein files, we're not going anywhere. If you're going to ignore us, you're going to bring in Albert Bourla, you're going to bring in Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates into the White House, you're only going to piss us more off. And now we're going to mobilize and weaponize against those that weaponized against us. And in the process, there will have to be collateral damage all the way to the top of the legislative branch, executive branch, and the judicial branch of our government. Because like we're done. Like the momentum is now on our side. We just saw it play out this last few days. You're not going to bamboozle us with another bait and switch. You're going to continue to piss us off by endorsing COVID Democrat criminal Andrew Cuomo. No, you just pissed me off even more. So there we go. I'm going to do as many shows to mobilize the truth, and we're going to get to it, and we're going to crush anyone in our way.
What kind of information do you think you can get from Discovery?
Well, considering she was a senior official at the Department of Defense and at the Central Intelligence Agency, we'll probably be able to get and work the entire network of those involved in the origins of COVID, the planning for COVID with Event 201. Remember all that stuff? Event 201, you're familiar with it? That was all from
Why don't you talk about that real quick?
So Event 201 was the exercise scenario that was created a year before COVID was released that laid out exactly how it played out. And so everyone that planned and participated in that, many from the CIA, right? Remember, this, like I said at the beginning of our interview, the story arc of the last 11 years started with the 2014 treason that had the Autopen had to pardon, which was John Brennan as the CIA director ran the whole coup in Ukraine to place a new leader so that 10% could go to the big guy through his surrogates, through his crack baby son on the board of Burisma, right? That was the first boilerplate 10% for the big guy. And then from there, another arc was the 51 spies who lied that covered for the Biden laptop were mostly all CIA, okay? Brennan being one of them. So once you start to see the CIA component of who this plaintiff communicated with that hired her on and all of their communications, I think we're going to have a treasure trove of information showing the 11-year arc of treasonous, seditious conspiracy that will help play into the January grand jury that is being impaneled down in Florida in Fort Pierce to showcase the seditious conspiracy. This is just yet another vector. So I think she'll be another vector of being able to prove the entire 11 years of treason. And that's why I created the deep state target list. It lists categories of all this stuff. And the COVID cabal, criminal cabal category is only one component of it. And again, like it incorporates seditious conspiracy from both political parties, right? Leadership from both political parties. And I guess we have to deal with that. We have to address all of them.
Today's CIA, has there been reform? Can we trust the current CIA? What are your thoughts on?
Have you heard
Trump's
of the
CIA?
current CIA director firing anyone? Have you heard anything about that?
I have not. No, who is the current CIA director?
He's one of my co-defendants, John Ratcliffe.
Right.
Okay. Now, I'm going to say this. My assessment is that 99% at least of the current CIA is loyal to John Brennan still. And he's still out there treasoning, right? Freely communicating, coordinating, organizing the coup, continuing to destroy our constitutional rights and the 51 affiliates, right? The 51 and all the people that are loyal to them. So this CIA is still pretty much controlled by the John Brennans of the world and those 51. The FBI is still controlled by.
Well, what is John Brennan doing right now?
I would guess that since he's free to walk freely, he's just treasoning. I mean, he's pulling up his phone and, in different groups, whatever he uses for an app, and it's like, hey, let's have a meeting. Let's figure out a way. Oh, he's probably the next 60 days, he's probably working with his incoming governor in Virginia, Abby Spanberger, who used to work at the CIA with him, and coordinating with the Democrat Attorney General, so that on January 17th, when those two swear in into a trifecta domestic Democrat terrorist organization controlling Virginia from Richmond, they're just going to take what Jack Smith, Fannie Willis, Alvin Bragg, and Letitia James didn't get to do and continue to do it from the authorities of a surrogate lackey of John Brennan, Abby Spanberger, who's going to be the incoming governor in 60 days. So when people say, oh, the midterms and then Trump's going to get impeached. No, I mean, he's going to get destroyed politically starting on January 17th, like on that day. So I guess my recommendation would be maybe this administration needs to actually hire some more Democrats to actually stop the lawfare from happening, because Republicans won't do it. They're cowards. They're worthless. They're complicit cowards. So, I mean, who's doing anything? Bobby Kennedy is the only, and Tulsi Gabbard are really the only two people in the admin that are actually have some courage, former Democrats. So maybe, like, you see where I'm going here?
All right.
It's disgusting. We went from a
talk about
China first, illegitimate Biden criminal syndicate to a big pharma, to a continuation of a big pharma first and now Israel first administration. That's basically what I observe. All to get the Nobel Peace Prize.
Well, talk about CIA and COVID and their involvement, and are they responsible for the pandemic?
So the way I view this is that when Anthony Fauci testified and he was asked by either it was Brad Wenstrup, the COVID Select Committee, or maybe Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer. I have a video. Basically asked him if he communicated with the Intel community, and he said he did. So then which components, right? Well, when you start to break it down, like who's responsible for foreign intelligence? It's the CIA, right? So then who within the CIA was he communicating with and coordinating with, right? And why? I think if I were to recommend anything right now to folks in the admin, is that the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, who's a co-defendant of mine now with the Second Amendment complaint, I'm proud of that, she could go ahead and order her, it's called the Directors Initiative Group that she created back in April, to go ahead and look at the origins of COVID and actually release what they have, because that was one of the, if I'm not mistaken, that was one of the charters of that organization that she created. And so we haven't heard anything yet from them. It would be nice to see and hear declassified who Anthony Fauci was communicating with, and then correlate that with some of the disclosures that Senator Rand Paul has shown us of the funding of the NIAID that Fauci led for 40 years, when and how much went to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and all those communications, and whether or not there were CIA back channel communications as well, and the decision-making process. Once we expose that, the government holdings, and declassify that, and then maybe private communications, I suspect that you're going to have plenty for criminal referrals. But the problem is that Big Pharma Pam Bondi, who's the AG that represented Pfizer before she became AG, Pfizer was one of her clients in Florida. I mean, you really think that she's going to go after her former client? Seriously?
Right.
And by extension, all those in that ecosystem. And that was the main reason why they had to stop Matt Gaetz from being the AG, because he would have been going after all this. And it's problematic when Big Pharma funds the entire political industrial complex in DC, to include the White House and presidency of both parties. So that's where we come in.
Yeah.
The accountability is coming from us. It's not coming from our government.
Right. What do you think the sticking point is? Is it Trump? Is it Susie Wiles? Is it Pam Bondi? Is it Stephanie Spear within HHS? Why has nothing been done about
Why does it have to
COVID,
be
about
mutually
the COVID
exclusive?
shots?
Why can't it be all of the above? Right?
Yeah.
At what point do you say, oh, you got to blame it on his staff because they duped him? They're controlling access. So, how many months and years are you going to blame subordinates for the principal's failures? A year? 4 years? Under a Pence administration? He was handled by Pence. Now, another year, he's handled by a chief of staff. So, 5 years? Like, at what point do you say he's either like Biden, and so you can blame the staff because Biden was incompetent towards the end, right? At what point do you equate that and analogous to that situation, or do you say no, this individual is still lucid and competent, and so you have to lay the decision making process on the individual that decided to endorse Democrat COVID criminal Andrew Cuomo, that slaughtered thousands, admitted to it on live TV that he slaughtered nursing home patients. That's who Donald Trump endorsed. So who do you blame it on?
Yeah.
Who do you blame the invitation into the White House? Albert Bourla. Twice. Just saw him last night, right? Mucking it up with the guy that never released the Fauci files, Elon Musk.
What do you think about Israel and their involvement in this?
Well, you got to ask Miriam Adelson. You know who that is?
Probably not as much as I need to know. So go ahead and explain.
So Miriam Adelson, when Donald Trump went to Israel and gave that speech, the most recent one, part of his speech included, Miriam Adelson, she's really rich and she's more loyal to Israel than she is the United States. And she donates a lot of money to my campaign and her affiliated groups to the tune of $230 million. And then it begs the question, interesting. How can you correlate that and Albert Bourla's relationship with Israel, if there is any, and Netanyahu, and how much of the Epstein op was spearheaded by Israeli intelligence in conjunction with MI6 and the CIA? So as you pull that thread, most people that have an analytic, critical thinking mind would think there's at least a low level of confidence that there is a correlation. Okay? And then as you dig further, that low level of confidence through multidiscipline intelligence sources, open source, human intelligence, signals intelligence, start to support a higher confidence level that it's all interrelated. And that's where I'm at. I'm in the medium, inching towards high level of confidence that is the case. Now, if anybody has evidence that is inconsistent with that hypothesis, then by all means, I want to hear it. But I want to hear the evidence, not, you're bad. You're name callers, right? The ad hominem attacks. I love them. I mean, like once you're exhausted with ad hominem attacking me for like an hour, 2 hours, a couple weeks, then once you've exhausted name calling me, and I'll say, yep, I'm all of that. Now that we've gotten past that, let's talk about what evidence do you have, whether it's Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin, or the others. Give me a rational reason of why you come to the conclusion of calling me names. Can't do it because then it exposes their loyalties.
I want to go back to Israel though. So spell it out for us.
Why?
Or, well, what do you think? Do you think Israel, how exactly is Israel involved with the COVID shot, with the pandemic? Spell it out. What your theory?
I haven't gone down that rabbit hole enough to be able to give you a very succinct, informed opinion on that. But what I will say is that a majority of Congress, based on my own empirical evidence of walking the halls of Congress, and I'm going to be starting to trickle out the video and picture testimony, if you will, on my X and other channels, where like to get the best outwardly facing resume of a member of Congress is take a picture of outside their office.
Oh yeah.
And most of them have a flag of Israel. Most of them, or not
or
most,
a trans
most
flag.
of them have.
They also
Wait, hold up, I'm getting there. You're getting ahead of me here. So you're either going to have a Israel flag, a Ukraine flag, a CCP affiliated flag back in the day. Remember the Biden Laptops Matter, BLM, Biden Laptops Matter flag, or a fist, which is a CCP surrogate, right? CCP surrogate, big pharma, shill, or a self-mutilation flag, right? They call it something different, but it's basically self-mutilation. You know, lopping off penises, slapping on vaginas, slapping on some breasts here and there. So they're advocating for that, or for family mutilation. I'm talking about, you know, the different colored flags, right? So they fall into one or several of those categories. And that's problematic because these individuals are supposed to represent the United States, not a flag of another foreign country or of a foreign interest that is destructive to American society. Self-mutilation, family mutilation, right? It's like, why would I have somebody representing me that advocates for self-mutilation? Like, if that's physical violence. If you're willing to do physical violence on yourself, you're going to be prone to conduct physical violence on others. That's not acceptable. Okay. And so the thing is that people have to call it out for what it is, because that's what it is. I mean, it's disgusting. And so we're at a point where all of our institutions are completely captured, even though, you know, this time around they got ours by them. Doesn't matter. They're still captured by all these other interests that are totally anathema, in contravention to what 90% of Americans even care to accept, right? It's totally against 90% of Americans. And so the way we mobilize folks is to do these conversations, present the evidence, and they lose their audience. Like faux news is on the decline. Criminal News Network is on the decline. MSLSD. I mean, the main DOJ reporter, national security reporter at MSLSD, since we're on the subject and we're talking about the CIA, I like to call the CIA. Well, let me just introduce you to yet another shared screen, if I may. Let's take a look here. Let's go to this one here. Heard of this guy? MSNBC reporter now. Ken Delanian. Do I need to move it over? I think. Let me see if that works. No. Ken Delanian, right? Sent CIA drafts of his stories before they were published. Another version of that article. Let me see here. CIA's mop-up man. LA Times reporter cleared stories with agency before publication. This was during Brennan's reign. He's now he's the lead DOJ reporter for the MSNBC crowd. Okay. Total bogus. Mop-up guy, right? Doing the CIA's bidding to manipulate America. Another example. Where did I put it? Yeah, I already did that one. Here we go. Ex-Tribune reporter said to have collaborative relationship with the CIA. You can't see it because it's partial screen. So unless I do this. There. Now you can see it. Anyhow. Let me stop sharing screen.
Yeah, I don't think this gets enough attention, but our own government spent $11.5 billion on a propaganda campaign to spread the safe and effective narrative. And they launched this program on the exact same day that Houston Methodist became the first hospital in the country to mandate the shots, which was April 1st, 2021. And that was 5 months before Biden. And yeah, no doubt the CIA was probably involved in that as well.
I would say with a high degree of confidence that that is the case. But we're waiting on Tulsi Gabbard to do the release. I would say that now that we're getting some traction and momentum on the January 6th front, again, Thomas Massey being one of the key figures behind it with his tenacity on the pipe bomber, because once you unravel the pipe bomber and you link it to the framework of how Pelosi was able to run the Fedsurrection play, which falls within her statutory, I guess, authorities, which are, I mean, I don't want to go here too much, but if I bring in this particular tab, these are the authorities upon which this Fedsurrection was created by Nancy Pelosi. 2 USC 1967. It's a law enforcement arm of the U.S. legislative branch, right? And so let me say this, that the individual that's being attacked the most in Congress by this admin is the very person that is exposing J6 and the pipe bomb narrative, the Fedsurrection, is the very person that was the only one that stood their ground for the Constitution, to make sure that everyone voted in person on the COVID relief package, the COVID op, right, back in 2020, during a Trump presidency, and is the only one with Marjorie Taylor Greene effectively in a very vocal way calling out that, hey, we need to expose this blackmail scheme, right? And unfortunately, the White House is not on our, is fighting us. The White House is fighting us on the Epstein release. The Speaker of the House is fighting us on the Epstein release in the House, the Republicans. And they're also fighting us on COVID exposure and accountability. We're going to devour them. And we're not even going to burp in the process.
Well, yeah, this release of the Epstein files is a huge win for the people, right? Because the Republicans were against it and we won, and the people won.
We haven't won yet. This is phase one. We've won phase one. Now we're going to move to phase two, where we're going to expose elements of the DOJ that are going to continue to try to cover up and say, hey, due to national security, we can't release this person's name or that person's name because they're part of intelligence. No, those are the names that need to be released. Sorry. We have enough whistleblowers, and I think enough people that are now with courage, and we have enough million, thanks to Elon again and Rumble, there's enough people out there that is going to force this to come out. Now, they can slow walk it, slow roll it. It's going to be, it's going to be politically bloody, if you will. But at the end of the day, the same result will happen. Just like we drug and teabag, and you call it what you want, and embarrassed and drug into forcing this administration to apologize and walk it back, we're going to do the same thing on COVID. And the main reason that I suspect is that Jared Kushner's fingerprints are on everything COVID and everything Israel. He is the conduit to this entire scheme. He was the shadow governor of the COVID task force under Donald Trump. That is why the cover-up continues, in my estimation.
All right. Perfect. It's very clarifying. Well, thank you, Ivan. This has been very
now you know.
And
now a lot of people are going to be mad at me in the White House and use surrogates to contact me to tell me you can't tell Ivan to stop talking about that. And my response is, hey, why don't you start listening to us, and then you won't be embarrassed. Start listening to us. We will not embarrass you. Okay, that's it.
Well, thank you. Thank you for fighting so hard. And this has been very informative.
You inspired me.
You have a hearing. We'll have a little more answers to that lawsuit next week, right before Thanksgiving. And
yeah, I think so. We'll see some filings. It'll be it's funny. It's funny. Every single pleading that's filed, because it's such a ridiculous lawsuit. It's fun.
Well, thanks, Ivan. We'll bring you back on when we get some more developments in this.
I appreciate you. Thanks for platforming me and keep fighting. Thanks for what you're doing.
Yeah, likewise.
All right.
All right. Well, that brings us to a close. Remember, this show is possible because of the Wellness Company. they support the production of the show. So if you are buying supplements, if you are buying ivermectin, because ivermectin's still hard to come by, but the Wellness Company makes it accessible. And if you use code Mary, then that helps support me. I don't get any kind of kickback, but that means that they know that the advertising on the show is helpful. So support me and support them. And we will next week, we're taking a break for Thanksgiving, but we'll see you back after Thanksgiving.